What's even more interesting is how Whoopi Goldberg, someone who is worth tens of millions of dollars, views herself as a working class American. Let's take a look.
I appreciate that people are having a hard time. Me too.
Yeah.
I work for a living, okay? So I'm a working person.
Whoopi Goldberg's recent statements on The View regarding the problems of working-class Americans have generated fierce debate, with many accusing her of being shockingly out of touch despite her multi-million-dollar luxury residences and decades of success in Hollywood. Goldberg argues she works for a job and understands financial difficulty today. Kasparian talks out why this gap matters and what it says about the inability of media elites in general to address the genuine challenges of regular people. Take a look. All right, well, the ladies of The View are still trying to figure out what went wrong in the presidential election, with some still rejecting the idea that Democrats abandoning working-class Americans certainly did not help their cause and definitely hurt them in this election. What's even more interesting is how Whoopi Goldberg, someone who is worth tens of millions of dollars, views herself as a working-class American. Let's take a look. I respect that folks are having a hard time. Me too. Yes, I work for a job. If I had all the money in the world, I would not be here laughter. Good. So I'm a working person now. Look, does she work for a living? Sure she does. She's a talk show host. That's working for a living. Incredibly hard job. Great. That's what we do. And by the way, Whoopi Goldberg's recent remarks on The View, where she portrayed herself as someone who understands the financial struggles of working-class Americans because she works for a living, have sparked significant backlash from both the public and critics. In her statement, which implied that she too faces financial challenges like feeding her grandchildren, was met with scorn from pundits like Kasparian and Iger. They argue that Goldberg's attempt to align herself with the struggles of everyday people is not only misleading but also tone-deaf given her immense wealth and decades-long career in Hollywood. Goldberg, who has earned millions throughout her career, lives in opulent homes and enjoys the luxuries that come with fame. She has a lifestyle that is light years away from the paycheck-to-paycheck existence that millions of Americans endure. Her comments, meant to show solidarity with the working class, came across as not just disingenuous but insulting. She attempted to connect her life to that of the average American worker, framing her professional struggles as relatable, yet her words did not reflect the reality of her financial situation. This disconnect is particularly striking when we consider the fact that she is worth millions and has had a successful career in entertainment for decades. The problem, critics assert, is not that Goldberg works hard after all. Everyone who holds a job puts in effort. Rather, it's the way she downplays the privileges and wealth that come with her career while pretending to share the burdens of those struggling to make ends meet. I work for a living, Goldberg said, as though this statement alone made her a part of the working class. But when you have multiple producers working for you, several co-hosts, and a multi-million-dollar income, it's clear that your experience is vastly different from someone working 2 or 3 jobs just to pay rent. Critics, including Kasparian and Iger, pointed out that Goldberg should simply be more honest about her position in life. Instead of pretending to live paycheck to paycheck, she could acknowledge her wealth and how far removed her reality is from those of her audience. Look, I get it. I'm wealthy. I used to be poor, but I haven't been poor in a long time, they suggest she could say. This kind of honesty would allow her to connect with the working class without diminishing her authenticity. By not being upfront about her vast fortune, Goldberg undercuts her credibility and damages the very message she was trying to convey. The image of her worrying about feeding her grandchildren feels like a theatrical oversimplification of a much deeper issue. It suggests a misunderstanding, or worse, a deliberate attempt to mislead about what it means to struggle financially in America. For someone with millions of dollars in the bank, a comfortable home, and a secure career, the challenges faced by those living on a limited income are on an entirely different scale. This incident also highlights a growing divide between wealthy media figures and the average American worker. The public often looks to figures like Goldberg for representation and understanding, but when those individuals present themselves as struggling when they are not, it diminishes the very real challenges of those who are working hard to make ends meet. The disparity between the media elites and the masses they claim to speak for has never been more apparent. Goldberg's comments, rather than fostering empathy and solidarity, only serve to remind us of the widening gap between the haves and have-nots. In a world where the rich seem to grow richer while working-class families face increasing financial insecurity, Goldberg's attempt to present herself as part of the working class comes across as nothing more than an attempt at emotional manipulation. It is crucial for public figures to understand the power of their words, especially when they have the privilege of wealth and influence. In Goldberg's case, her failure to acknowledge her own privilege in the face of financial hardships faced by millions makes her attempt at solidarity ring hollow and further exposes the gap between the media elite and the people they claim to represent. Okay, my point is, you don't comprehend what it's like to be a poor American who's worried about their financial stability. You get what I'm saying, like 100%. Well, look, we've covered The View a lot, sadly, and so the two things she said are just not even accurate. Was she, about being a working class American, she said, Me Too. I mean, maybe that's a new Me Too movement for affluent people on TV, like, oh, working class me. To Me Too. Come on, guys, come on. It insults our intelligence, right? But the second thing she said near the end there, if I understood it right, was she was saying, well, we talk to people all the time that disagree. Do you? I mean, I get it that you have form too, like you have the form, like they're famous for telling everyone in the Democratic Party, shut up and accept Biden, accept Kamala Harris, accept Hillary Clinton. Bend your head. That's mostly what The View does, so that's why it's again. It insults her intelligence, and it's just offensive, but forget offensive, it's annoying for her to say like, oh, we talk to people all the time, we're so open-minded. Come on. In fact, it seems like The View has become a lightning rod for criticism, with detractors accusing the show of leaning heavily on leftist identity politics while overlooking the actual economic problems that resonate with most Americans, far from creating genuine debate. The panel typically sidesteps serious engagement with varied. In recent months, the political discourse on The View has shifted, with rising tensions and conflicts among the hosts, most notably following the aftermath of the recent election. The show, once considered predictable and somewhat uncontroversial, has become a battleground for heated debates, particularly over the future of the Democratic Party. While the election results highlighted significant flaws in the Democrats' approach, such as the alienation of working-class voters, the panelists on The View seem reluctant to confront these issues head-on. Instead of acknowledging the party's shortcomings, particularly the disconnect between the party's elite leadership and the working-class base, much of the discussion has centered around deflecting blame and doubling down on narratives that many Americans no longer find compelling. The rise in tension within the panel seems to stem from a broader reluctance to reckon with the growing disillusionment among voters. As the election results poured in, it became increasingly clear that the Democratic Party's messaging had failed to resonate with a crucial part of the electorate, the working class. However, rather than grappling with this reality, the hosts on The View have leaned into defensive rhetoric, particularly when discussing the causes behind the Democratic Party's losses. This response underscores an ideological echo chamber that seems to dominate discussions on the show, where dissenting conservative or populist perspectives are often dismissed without genuine engagement. The problem, many critics argue, is that the panel's focus has been on defending a status quo that ignores the frustrations of the very people the Democratic Party once championed. Before the election, The View was considered by many to be predictable, often leaning heavily on liberal viewpoints. The show had become somewhat repetitive, with little room for meaningful conflict or dissenting opinions. However, the election results triggered a shift, bringing to light the deepening divisions within the political landscape. The reactions from The View as hosts, especially Sunny Hostin, have been particularly striking. Hostin in particular seems unwilling to accept that the Democrats' struggles are rooted in their failure to address the needs of working-class Americans. Instead, she has been vocal in her defense of the Democratic Party, even when it's clear that their policies and rhetoric have alienated a significant portion of the electorate.
I'm just saying, guys, you're so out of touch with the average American.
Exactly.
And you don't know it. And that's why it feels like it almost feels like you're rubbing it in our face when you say that.
And I know they don't mean to do that.
Yeah, I agree with that.
But I do think that for people who deliver the news or discuss or analyze what's happening in the country, it's a big problem when you look at pretty much every news organization and realize a lot of these people went to Ivy Leagues. A lot of these people come from affluent families. A lot of these people are totally disconnected from the vast majority of Americans and the struggles they face.
Anna Kasparian and Cenk Uygur take sharp aim at Whoopi Goldberg's attempt to portray herself as a working-class American, calling out the glaring disconnect between her multi-million-dollar lifestyle and the real financial hardships faced by most Americans. They argue that Goldberg's comments reflect a broader problem exemplified by The View, a show that prioritizes liberal identity politics over meaningful discussion of economic issues that directly impact working families. By ignoring the systemic financial struggles plaguing the majority of Americans, the panelists on The View epitomize the detachment of media elites from the realities of everyday life. This separation not only undermines their credibility, but also highlights how the wealthy and powerful within the media bubble fail to genuinely engage with or represent the concerns of ordinary citizens. What do you think about this? Let us know in the comments. Thank you.